And we're back now with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and Republican Congressman Jeff Flake joins us from Phoenix this morning. Congressman Flake, let me start with you. Congress comes back. The debate on repealing health care overhaul is going to begin this week. Do you plan to change anything that will your tone change, and do you think the Congress's tone is going to change when this debate unfolds?
I think it will. I think you'll see a more civil debate than you would have had otherwise. I'm not sure the substance of the debate will change that much. I think Republicans are committed to repealing the law in the House, obviously, but I do think that the tone will change, and that's a good thing. I think it was a good decision to put it off for a week.
You know, this is a small thing, but something I noticed in the accounts of what the new Speaker Boehner said yesterday. He talked about legislation. He called it we're going to try to stop this job-destroying legislation instead of calling it job-killing legislation. Do you think that is can that possibly continue on here, or am I just being kind of a Pollyanna about this?
Well, I think that we Republicans and I think Democrats alike will realize that if we tone down the rhetoric sometimes, our debate is more effective from our own side. If you take a cue from the movie industry, you look at the top grossing movies, they're almost always PG or PG-13. It's better to have a more civil tone and a civil debate, and I think it behooves all of us to do so.
Senator Gillibrand, you are one of those who have gotten behind this idea that when the president makes his State of the Union address, that instead of all the Republicans sitting on one side of the chamber and all the Democrats on the other, that people just sit together. That's obviously a very cosmetic thing, but number one, tell me, how is that going? And number two, do you think it really is a significant thing, or could be?
Well, I think it's a symbol, and a symbol is a very good place to start. And so if we can actually come into that chamber, and instead of me going to the left, I go to the right, and Republicans do the opposite, what you're going to create is an image of the Congress deciding that we are going to work as a body, not as two separate sides. And that's a very good place to start. And I think the conversation you're having about healthcare is very meaningful, because one thing the governor brought up that I thought was very significant is that if we can move that conversation to what about the bill do you want to change, that is a legitimate debate that we should frankly have. The bill's not perfect. It never has been. For example, after the bill was written, a lot of our small businesses came to me and said, there's a lot of paperwork I now have to fill out. There's too many paperworks. Every time I spend X number of dollars, I have to fill out a form. We can change that. That's something we can absolutely agree on. But talking about repealing the whole piece of legislation, well, let's break it apart. Are the tax cuts for small businesses not something we can all agree on? I think it is. Are making medicines less expensive for seniors by closing the donut hole? That's something we all agree on. Making sure we have more choices and more competition, that's an American value. That's something we agree on. Making sure everyone covers preventive care, we can probably keep that. So having a debate about substance in recognition that the divisiveness of national politics has become so undermining of our ability to be successful is very important. And I think the president's call to action is extremely meaningful for that reason, because all he's saying is that our democracy has to live up to the expectation of our children, that we have to solve the problems of the day. And a very significant issue that we have to get to is the economy. We have to focus on how we're creating jobs.
All right, let me go to Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz quickly. You know, I say this not so much to be critical, but you are very outspoken. You come to a point when you are in a debate, Congresswoman. Do you plan to dial back your rhetoric when the Congress convenes this time?
Well, I don't plan to debate my values and the principles of my constituents any less vigorously, but I think it starts with us, and we have to lead by example. And so I think all of us need to be more careful about the words that we choose to use, including the things like the title of the repeal of health care reform. I'm glad that Speaker Boehner chose to verbalize a different title for that bill, but they so far have refused to actually change the title of job-killing healthcare repeal. So I think we need to be leaders by example, and when we do that, then hopefully we're going to be able to push the shock jocks and others outside our process to take a page from our book and if we have a more productive civil discourse, then we can really live up to President Obama's words and Christina Taylor Greene's dreams of her expectations for our democracy.
All right.
We've got to lead by example.
Let me go to Congressman Flake quickly because we're running out of time. Congressman, what is going to be the hardest part of all this?
Well, I think keeping this tone that seems to be now set into the future. It's easy to slip back into old ways, and like I said, I think we can have the debates we need to with a more civil tone, and frankly, I think we'll find that that's more effective from both sides. But keeping that into the future is going to be a tough thing.
All right. I want to thank all of you for being with us this morning.